Hey, what's up, parents and teachers? It's me, Seth, with SethPerler.com. I hope you're having a great day. It is spring. Spring break is upon us. This is the time of the dip. A lot of things are falling apart. This is our final push for the year. We're getting into what I call Hail Mary time, and this is a difficult time. Good luck with this time of the year in terms of helping your students, helping support your students to navigate this final stretch. Today, I'm going to talk about you know those students that you're working with, whether you're a parent or a teacher, and they just forget stuff all the time. They leave it in the wrong classroom. They lose stuff all the time. They spend all this time working on a homework. It never got turned in. They got a zero on it. Those type of students. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about today about that type of student, and I'm going to read an email from a mom named Nicole and answer a question that she has about one of these students. So, by the end of this video, you're going to have about 8 ideas to help these students. I'm going to go rather quickly, but you'll have some concrete ideas with how to help these students. I've helped a lot of students really figure out ways to manage their stuff in a way that they can handle it and that they don't feel overwhelmed. And I'm going to go over some of those elements for you. Here's how the email goes. First, you're the best. Love all the help you provide. Executive function challenge kids. Question on your simple schoolwork system. How do you tell high school kids to manage carrying all of these separate folders and composition books? So basically, they're saying, how do you, what do you do? What do you tell them to do in terms of carrying all this stuff? Most of the times they can't go to their locker until lunch, and they may have 3 to 4 classes to prepare for, and that's kind of why the zipped 3-ring binder is helpful. But the only reason, and they have a smiley face because they know that I'm not big on 3-ring binders, but the zipped one, because of that zipper on it, it helps them contain their stuff. Most schools these days do not let kids carry around their backpacks for safety reasons. I'm afraid my freshmen will leave his science stuff in math and then move on to Spanish, etc. Any suggestions you have would be great. Thank you, Nicole. All right, so I have 8 ideas that I'm going to go over here. First of all, one thing that works for a lot of students is to have an AM and a PM binder, or an AM and a PM accordion folder, or an AM and a PM zip binder, or bag, or backpack. Now, it may seem like overkill, but you don't want these AM and PM things to be 2 giant things. You want them both slimmed down versions. If you're familiar with my work, you know that I really am very minimalist, very essentialist, I want my students to really have the minimum that they need. The more stuff they have, the more stuff they have to manage, not only in school, but also in life, in their stuff, in their inboxes. So we want to slim down the stuff. We want them to have less stuff. We want them to have what they really need to manage. So first tip is that you can do an AM and a PM version. You can tailor that, and you guys can figure that out on your own. I'm not going to go into more depth on that. Next, color coding is so important. I don't want my students to be thinking math, for example. I want them to be thinking yellow. Okay, so maybe these 2 would be math, or maybe red is science, or whatever it is. But I want visually things to be very color coded. I want my students to get their stuff in the right place. It's a huge problem. Color coding is one tip to help do that. I really take this seriously. I want the eye. These kids are often very visual. They're not often reading the words. They're seeing the color. So use that. Next, number 3, labels have got to be huge and clear and obnoxious. If you have the type of student who leaves something in one class or leaves something at home or whatever, you want to have clear labels. I can't tell you how many times when I was a school teacher that I saw somebody would leave a folder on the floor, and 2 minutes later it'd be kicked all the way down the hall. Papers would be all over. That kid's never going to get their stuff back in a meaningful way. And if their name was not on it, it's never coming back. If their name's on it, it's a lot harder for people to kick around something on the floor that has a human being's name on it. It looks more meaningful. So it's more likely, I'm not guaranteeing anything, to get picked up and also to get back to the students. So if somebody picks this up and they go, oh, that is Seth Perler's folder, then one of the teachers or a parent in the hall or one of the kids can be like, oh, we'll get that back to Seth. Or if you, for example, put the name of the teacher, like here it says Miss Smith, for example, on the folder, then they can go, oh, this is Seth Perler's. I don't know who that is, but it can go back to Miss Smith, the math teacher. And clearly this is math. So Seth knows not to put science or social studies or language arts in this folder because it says math. You can even go so far as to put if it's an A day or if it's 6th period period. You can go crazy and get all the details on here. I call that front loading. You can go and get detailed with trigonometry. You can have a big giant M or a big giant math. I do recommend putting your name on the front and the back. At the very least, get your name on the back also. But you want big, giant, obnoxious labels. You can make it cool. You can make it graffitied. You can make it art. I don't care. But get, at the very least, get a big, clear label on it, because I have had so many students will be like, oh yeah, I lost my planner. And they've used it for 3 months, but now it's gone. They have to start with a new one, or they've lost a folder with lots of work in it. They don't even know what's like. Just get the clear labels. Have I made myself clear on that one so far? So that was tip number 3. Next is the type of folder. So I generally recommend the cheap 50-cent folders. Now you're going to want to buy 2 or 3 of these because they do fall apart, but who cares? You get 2 or 3, you have them for the year, you label them all so that they're done, so when it falls apart you can just recycle the one and get the new one. But I generally recommend these. I don't like the plastic folders because for kids that are more messy, they can go like this and everything can fly out of the plastic one, so I'd like a cheap paper folder like this. Now, I do have some students that just use these simple manila folders, and that's it. So some of my students, I'm like, look, just can you get it in here? Can we at least use these? Now, if your student is not using a zip binder or backpack or something, it's more likely to fall out of this, so you want to consider every detail. But with some students, can you get it into this folder? And I use these. For some students, we'll use an accordion. However, an accordion folder for a student who is not as motivated to use a folder, are they going to really pull out an accordion, set it on their desk, flip back the front of the accordion, and go through to get it? Some of my students do that, not many. Or can you do the 3-ring binder? That's very few of my students successfully use a 3-ring binder to actually manage their stuff. So it's not actually doing the job it's intended to do, but it may work. Now, as far as the zip binder that you are mentioning, I have had students break out or cut out the rings themselves and just use it, but you could probably find something else that zips. But that is not a bad idea at all. If you have an AM and a PM small zip thing or something that is enclosed that can keep, if they have 3 folders for the morning, 3 for the afternoon, maybe the 3 in the morning are yellow with another color, maybe the 3 in the afternoon are blue with another color, whatever you want to do. But if you can find a container like that or 2, that might make things easier. So again, the type of folder, you got your pocket folders, you got your manila folders, your accordions, your 3-ring binders, and then your zip binders. Next, I'm going to talk about, you mentioned, this is number 5, you mentioned the composition notebooks, right? So if they have 6 composition notebooks, 1 for each class, that might be a lot to manage. Here is a trick that you can do. You can have the front part of the composition notebook for one class, and they can flip it over, and you can have the other side, let's say behind this sticky note, for another class. You can also do this to divide it, or you can make it creatively divide it so that this is actually 2 notebooks. That's probably enough room for 1 semester for a lot of classes. So this can actually be 2 in 1. Another thing that I love is moleskins. I love them because they have a feel of, if your kid is more creative, it feels like an art book. Now let me show you the size comparison. Here is your composition notebook, and here is a moleskin. They are so small. So to have 1 moleskin per class, and again, you can do art all over them and decorate it and label it with their name so that it gets back to them. But it's also, it's so small. These are so easy to carry that you could even fit them inside of a folder like this. They're so small. They're just, there's another perspective of how small they are. So think about the moleskins. They're kind of pricey for what they are, but whatever. If it does the job, who cares? Next, number 6, you have to help them walk through the process of managing their papers in a folder many, many, many times. If your relationship with your child is such that they will allow you to help them do this on a regular basis, even daily for 6 weeks or so, That's going to help the habit. To expect them to just do this and manage it and really be good at it, it's not going to happen overnight. It takes time. But and at least if you're doing the SNO or the Sunday night overhaul that I teach, if you're doing at least once a week an overhaul on the folder, get rid of everything they don't need, everything they still need to do something with, pull it out so that it gets done, and everything that just needs to be stored can go in here. But they need practice over and over and over walking through the process of managing the papers. Their folders never should be very thick. They really should never need any more than 10 or 20 papers in here at any given time for most classes, unless the teacher is forcing them to hold on to the papers for some reason. Some teachers like to do binder checks and stuff like that. Or folder checks or whatever, but really what they need in here is their current work. Some families that I work with, what happens is the parents will take everything out and archive it for the kid until the teacher does the binder check. That way the kid can only has to keep in here the things that are more current, so that they can actually manage what needs to be managed, and they can build the skill of managing the things in there in a rational way. Next, number 7. When to do it for them. Look, if your child is, a lot of times I will organize this for them. I will see what doesn't have their name on it, have them put their name on it. I will straighten out papers. I will put it in a good order for them. I will remove things that are the wrong subject, put them in the right folder. A lot of times I will do a lot of that for them at times. So if my student is working on a paper, they're working on their homework, or they're working on really the learning stuff, the learning part of their classes, their homework, then I oftentimes will take this off their plate. Okay. And then at other times I will sit down with them and be like, let's overhaul your folders now. And I'll go through it in a real detailed way on a night when there isn't as much to do as far as their homework is concerned. So there's a time and a place when to do it for them. In your mind, the question you always want to ask yourself is am I enabling them? And am I giving them more of the learned helplessness experiences, which we don't want, or am I empowering them and having them focus on what they need to focus on? So you kind of always want to be balancing that question in your head. And my last one is my number 8 is baby steps and persistence. Look, like I said before, it's not going to happen overnight. You have to persistently help support your child to build these structures. I know they're resistant. I know. I get it. That is the number one problem that my students deal with, is resistance in so many different forms. That is the number one thing you're going to deal with, is that resistance. How do we help them to do what is the things like building the skill of organization, for example, things that are good for their life, for their own future, for their own well-being? How do we help them build those skills when there is so much resistance? That's the question here, right? But the final tip is baby steps and persistence. Like, just keep pushing on. Just trust. Baby steps are everything. People want to see, like, oh yeah, my kid figured out this new system, now they've got it and it's awesome. It's not going to happen like that. It does occasionally, but it's extremely rare. That's not how I get students to experience change in their life. What I do that works is baby steps, over and over and over. Let's take the system and let's see how we can refine it just that much more. Let's see how we can polish your ability to use the system just that much more. Like, it's just bit by bit by bit. And you have to trust me that this is what works with these type of students, is these tiny steps, but persistently, trying all the time, trying to just take them to the next level, even if the next level is just a millimeter or a fraction of a millimeter. With that, again, my name is Seth Perler with SethPerler.com. If you like this, please share it with somebody right now and subscribe. You can also subscribe on YouTube. You can hit the bell if you want alerts on YouTube, but please subscribe to my blog, SethPerler.com, where I send out freebies and updates every week, generally on Sundays. And if you want to leave a comment on YouTube or on the blog with what have you learned about this? How do you help students who are losing things? Do you have any tips and tricks that you've used yourself or with children that you're working with that has helped them to be able to manage their stuff? Go ahead and leave that in the comments if you want. and have a fantastic day. I will see you next Sunday.